On this episode of That One Movie Podcast, we are going to discuss and review Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese's film is finally here. We're going to start off spoiler-free. We'll warn you before we dive into our spoiler-filled discussion. Beforehand, though, Holden, we are also going to take a look at the Loki Season 2, Episode 3, which that one's titled 1893, some World's Fair shenanigans going on there. And we will also discuss the 6th episode of Gen V titled Jumanji. So very short titles this week for the episodes.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, that's nice. We're also going to talk this week's news in the world of entertainment, including what's some of our stories this week, Holden.
So we'll be covering a couple new trailers for Napoleon and Saltburn. We're also going to talk about how Deadpool 3 might be getting delayed, and Gen V has some good news, Jimmy.
Ooh, some good news for Gen V. All right. Well, then buckle up. All right. As always, use the time codes down in the description to jump to whatever review or topic that we discuss that you are most interested in. Although, if you just want to hang out for the whole ride, you can do that as well.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I'm Jimmy Youthy.
I'm Holden Sutter.
And it's time for Tom.
Tom.
That One Movie Podcast.
Tom. Jimmy, before we talk Killers of the Flower Moon, we got to do Toms.
Let's do the Toms.
The Toms. Toms is the rapid fire segment in which we rate the news in the week in the world of entertainment on a scale of 3 famous Toms: Brokaw, Bombadil, and Bergeron. Brokaw's the highest, Bombadil's the lowest, and Bergeron is somewhere in between. Jimmy, let's get to it.
I think that was the best one so far on my end.
I stumbled a little bit, but it wasn't too. Probably overall, it was the best.
There's some ASMR for our audio only
for our
listeners.
Faces we hold up now.
Yes, very nice. Black and white. One day we'll be able to afford color faces.
Color ink is very expensive. So.
Yeah.
Jimmy. So we'll start out with trailers. Let's talk about the new trailer for the new Napoleon movie, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Jimmy, you're a history nut. Is this itching something for you?
Oh yeah, seeing Marie Antoinette about to be decapitated via the guillotine, or as some people say, guillotine.
Does anyone say guillotine?
I've heard it before.
Oh,
the guillotine.
I've always heard guillotine.
It's guillotine. Yeah, I don't know. You sound bad if you don't say that. Unless I'm pretty sure it's guillotine.
That's the way I've always heard it. So I don't.
Maybe a little
guillotine.
The quick Google search would fix that.
Yeah,
but
right now.
Yeah, no, that's scratching my itch. I like the whole idea of the frozen lake trap. They've discovered us.
Guillotine. There we go.
Guillotine. There it is. Don't say guillotine, folks, or guillotine. The frozen lake trap thing. That was discovered really cool. Us. He's like, good. Wish they would have saved that for the movie. Yeah. Honestly, because that would have been an epic moment. But maybe there's just plenty of epic moments as well. Mm-hmm. Vanessa Kirby just spreads her legs and Joaquin Phoenix just takes the gander. That's just in the trailer. Interesting.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, and I haven't studied Napoleon for like 5 years now, so he's very, very interesting, but it's not fresh in my mind, which I'm kind of excited about for seeing this movie. But I believe his wife does play a pretty important role in his life. The scene where he grabs the crown and puts it on his head, that's very significant because the Pope is supposed to crown him, and him doing that basically says I'm above everyone, including Pope and God. Essentially, I do not submit to anyone.
That's interesting. I didn't realize everyone seems so. Aghast, in that scene. I didn't understand that, but cool.
Yeah, so I think very good. Still very excited for this. Can't wait for Thanksgiving. I'm going Brokaw for me, Holden.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I mean, as someone who knows some of the basics about Napoleon, but not anything in detail, I think this will be very interesting to watch. It'll be very fun to listen to Jimmy talk about how certain things are wrong.
Well, actually, this happened. Well, it's been such a long time since we got a historical epic from Apple TV.
This is true. Oh, that's right. This is Apple TV as well.
So We'll see. I mean, Killers of the Flower Moon, obviously we'll dive into that review. They got this one coming out. Pretty excited for what Apple is churning out as the most valuable company in history.
Yeah, I'll give it a Brokaw as well.
Apple is bound to buy Disney, right? Like that seems just like, well, if like legally, if they can do it, that seems like just something that would make sense.
I've seen some like projections that people think that's going to happen in like the next decade or something.
It just makes sense. Yeah. Like not from an from an antitrust law, no, but from like those companies and Apple's ideals. Seems like they're just gonna buy Disney.
I wonder if they could legally do it. I mean, I know money gets shoved around behind the scenes all the time and whatever, but that's really big if that were to happen.
It's insane how valuable Apple is.
Yeah.
Like Disney seems like it should be the most valuable thing on the face of the earth, and it like is not even close to Apple.
No.
Just trillions of dollars.
It's because those phones are so expensive.
Those gosh darn phones, Holden.
Yeah.
I got the 13 Pro Max. I need the new one.
I also have I have the 13 Max, or 13 Pro, not
13,
Max.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. I've got one of them.
You need the new one, Holden. It's made out of titanium.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I saw that trailer before Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah. Well, this is really just they made like their MacBook Pros. Not even it was like MacBook or PowerBook G4 or something. It was before it was the MacBook Pro. They used titanium back then. This was like 2003 or 4 or something.
So they're just going back to what they used to do.
They're just going back. Like they're like Steve Jobs is like, it's incredible. Titanium's incredible. It's lighter than aluminum yet stronger than steel. And they literally like said that same exact thing when they brought out the new iPhone. I'm like, you guys are doing stuff from 20 years ago.
What a bunch of hacks.
Yeah. Apple. What do you guys know? You multi-trillion-dollar, very successful company.
If you guys want to sponsor us, we'll take it.
Yeah. We're brought to you by Apple.
But then the other trailer we have today is for Saltburn, the new Emerald Fennell movie. Jimmy, what'd you think?
Of course, Emerald Fennell of Promising Young Woman fame. That's her only movie, right?
She's an actor and she's been in other things, and she may have written other movies too. I can't remember, but yeah, only one other directed movie.
Yeah, which is terrific. Mm-hmm. If you have not seen it, you need to watch it. It only, my appreciation for that movie only grows, and I would like to watch it again.
That's very good.
I really like this trailer much more than the first one. This one connected with me, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening in this movie, but I want to see this. And it looks gorgeous, weird. I want to be along for the ride. It's a big swing. I don't know if it's going to land, but I am very curious. This trailer worked really well for me, much, much better than the first. So I'm excited for this. I'm definitely going broke out here. I think this is one of the better trailers I've seen in a while, actually.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I would say so. I went from kind of moderately interested in this movie just because it's Emerald Fennell to like, I am very intrigued.
Yeah, it's I mean the cinematography is fantastic. I mean with the setting being this weird estate in England somewhere. It's very gothic looking. A lot of very neon colors for the nighttime scenes.
Yeah, gothic neon.
Yeah, which is very bizarre contrast there. But great actors in it. Barry Keoghan, he's always a good weird little man. So I hope he's a good weird little man in this movie. Jacob Elordi, who's going to be in the new Elvis thing as well as Euphoria. But Priscilla. Yeah, it looks great. I'm giving it a Brokaw.
And the Archie Medeque or whatever Gran Turismo guy's in it.
Yeah, which you pointed out. I hadn't noticed that.
Which I did not realize he was in Midsommar as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, Brokaws for the both of us.
Brokaw.
Nice. Trailers are done for this week. What's the next piece of news?
Yeah, so Deadpool 3 is reportedly being delayed. It's not been officially confirmed by Disney or like in an announcement or anything. But Deadpool 3 hasn't finished principal photography. And with the actor strike, it seems like it'll be near impossible to make that May release date at this point.
Yeah. Right? Holy smokes. Supposed to be next May. Yeah, the one Marvel movie people are actually excited about.
And it's just probably, I mean, at the depending on when that actor strike gets done, earliest would be end of next year, I would think.
Yeah, well, they're not going to, and they're certainly not going to push this out without the promotional just machine of Hugh Jackman
and Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, they probably got so much planned for promotion for that. But a lot, I was seeing that unofficially, it looks like Captain America: Brave New World may take its spot, since apparently that's like completely finished filming and everything. So yeah, get the Falcon Captain America movie out instead. Excited for that.
Boy, I could wait. I could wait for that one. Look, delays not fun. Wish it came out when it was supposed to, but I would rather have them make the movie the way it's supposed to be made, have the press tour it's supposed to be. At this point in my life, I can withstand delays. We're just so used to it now.
Yeah, very, very common.
That I guess Bergeron, not a disappointment, but I'm glad they're taking their time.
Yeah,
to get it out and do it right, hopefully, because I have confidence in this movie actually being good.
Yeah, even though it is directed by the Free Guy director, I'm hopeful. So. Bergeron.
Free Guy was more of a script thing for me.
This
I think
is true.
than a direction.
I don't know who the writer for that was exactly, but but next piece of news, Jimmy, Gen V renewed for season 2.
Nice,
very exciting. Not that big of a surprise because it seems to be a pretty big hit for Amazon and everything. Apparently, the way that this has been described is that Gen V is going to be kind of leading into Boys season 4, and that'll lead into like the second season of Gen V.
Okay, yeah, I mean, makes sense. There are certain developments over the last couple episodes that we'll talk about that seems like, oh yeah, this could definitely
be kind of important for the boys.
Play a role in the boys. So interesting if that is like you need to watch this show in order to understand the next one, or maybe like a Book of Boba Fett situation where it's like you're gonna be missing pretty key pieces if you don't at least check out or if you don't know these elements from the show, maybe to not that big of an extent. But yeah, no. Originally, I thought this was going to be a mini series, so I don't know. As long as this season is kind of like self-contained and could work as its own story, and now they have an idea for where to go with it. Season 2, I obviously really enjoyed the show so far, and I enjoy the characters. So I would be excited to see more, assuming that there's a story to be told.
Yeah.
So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'll give them a Brokaw. I've been handing out Brokaws like nobody's business today.
Like candy. I think Gen V has a lot of potential. I mean, we talked about, I think last week, how, I mean, you can easily just do like a season per school year or whatever. Like there could be different adventures or like investigations they have to go through. And the school, I feel like they're really only scratching the surface of it in the best way possible. There's a lot of things you can do with it. There's obviously so many different people that go to the school that you can introduce as new characters with unique powers. I think there's a lot for them to do. So give them a Brokaw.
That's true. It doesn't even need to be the same characters, I suppose. It could be just a whole new group.
Yeah, not everyone needs to be like part of this main cast again.
Yeah, interesting.
If they don't have a need. So,
although. Yeah, I'm not sure how much involved it would be at the school after this season. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We shall see. Once that show wraps up, we'll have more ideas there. So that would be fun to talk about in a couple weeks when the season finale airs.
Yes, I agree.
All right, next story on the docket, Holden.
Next story on the docket, I have The Boy and the Heron, the new Studio Ghibli Hayao Miyazaki movie, announced the English dub cast, which normally I'm not sure I would make mention of, but it's very star-studded. We got Robert Pattinson, Mark Hamill, Christian Bale, Dave Bautista, Gemma Chan, Karen Fukuhara of The Boys.
Yeah, The Boys. Yeah.
Florence Pugh and Willem Dafoe, among others.
Wow.
So
you got 2 Batmans, a Joker, a Green Goblin.
A Drax.
A Drax, yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It seems that's a very good cast.
I like a lot of those people.
Yeah.
So awesome. That's cool. That makes me more excited for this movie. Why not give it another Brokaw?
Yeah, why not?
Got to give make up for all my Debbie Downness last week.
From last week. Yeah, it's I mean, Ghibli, however you say it, their movies, their English casts have always been quite solid and have had quite a few notable actors. Christian Bale was Howl in Howl's Moving Castle. So yeah, a lot of them are returning. I think Mark Hamill was the villain in Castle in the Sky, but yeah. Great cast.
Why don't you come over here, you boy and your heron?
I think it was like like that movie came out. I guess I don't know if the dub came out before he was Joker, but the movie definitely did, and it definitely sounds.
It's
a little
from
bit
like
Joker.
the 90s.
It's from like the 80s.
Oh,
that
80s,
movie,
90s.
yeah. So it definitely kind of sounds like Joker what he's doing in that movie. But then Jimmy, The Office is apparently getting a reboot.
Yeah, this was a thing last week. I don't know anything about this, but
there's not a whole lot known at this point in terms of details. The show creator, all we know is like the original show's creator, Greg Daniels, is going to be developing it. Like a lot of people are theorizing what it could be. Details aren't known about if it's going to be like all new characters, if it's going to be new takes on old characters, or what. What do you think about this, Jimmy?
well, my instinct is to go Bombadil and why. Why do this? I don't know. I mean, the only way. Why call it The Office? You know, like you did Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
that's the same team. It
very
was
similar.
Stylistically, visually similar,
but it had a.
It differentiated itself enough. It was more of a lighthearted version, kind of slapstick, faster, quippier version of The Office, less situational humor, more like just like witty, off the cuff humor, where there's drama in it, but the focus is more putting these funny people in funny situations rather than like ordinary people in funny situations.
Well, not to mention it's like
situations.
it's a totally different setting and with way like
more satire,
way more satire, and it's because it's this different setting and like way more like different things you can do with it, satirize and make fun of. So, just going back to like a normal office space is, I don't know. I mean, I guess like, benefit of the doubt with like working from home and stuff. I feel like there's modern workplace developments. There's probably things you can do.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
But I don't know. I don't know if there's enough to justify a new series. And like, I don't know. I just don't call it The Office. Yeah,
I would
something else.
I would make new characters. You can do something in that realm, in that style, without calling it The Office. I think you're just setting yourself up for
like disappointment, at least from fans, probably, because it's probably not going to be the exact same thing, and a lot of fans are just going to want the same thing, and so those fans are going to be disappointed.
But then again, maybe this is how people felt when they made the U.S. office after the U.K. office. It's like, why? Well, and they were able to find their footing and make it their own thing after a while. It just seems like a lot of that is so iconic, both the UK version and the US version, that where there's already two versions of the show.
Yeah, do you really need a third?
What are you gonna do, like a New Zealand version? What is there to do next?
I was getting the impression it is just like another American version, but it's still strange.
It kind of reminds me of like the Harry Potter show.
Yeah,
like,
similar.
Like,
because those ended around the same time too. So it's been like a similar gap in time.
Like, do we really want or need this? I think the Harry Potter one actually makes more sense since it was a movie series to a TV series.
Yeah, even though I still don't think it's necessary.
I still don't think it's necessary.
But it does make a slight bit more sense than just making another TV show of this TV show that ended 10 years ago.
Yeah, with a lot of iconic actors and roles and stuff.
Yeah, it's I really don't know. I mean, I guess for me, it's probably a Bombadil overall, because like I just don't think. Even though the benefit of the doubt I gave it with some like new ideas, I just am not convinced that's going to justify a new series.
Who wants this? I mean, like people love The Office and they just rewatch The Office.
Yeah, and like people that love The Office that would want more Office would want more of the same characters.
The same characters. They would want like a reunion show.
Yeah, they'd want one of those reunion shows that a bunch of channels or a bunch of shows have been doing. But
what do you think they all have that like subtitle, like Dexter, New Blood, or whatever. What do you think the Office one would be?
The Office,
work at home,
the
work
Office,
from home.
The Office restapled. I don't know. I feel like, and I mean, this is a slight tangent. I also just don't. I don't think a continuation of that show is likely to happen. Probably ever. I feel like too many of those actors just.
Are
Really
done.
Care. Yeah, they're done.
They're like the next chapter of life.
Yeah.
John Krasinski's making movies now.
Yeah, John Krasinski's making movies. Steve Carell's doing his thing. Yeah.
Rainn Wilson would probably do it.
Yeah, he might.
So
Probably
I don't know. Weird. I guess Bombadil because why? That's right.
Gotta hold it up, Jimmy.
I already did earlier,
Oh, you
so
did?
I'll do it
Okay.
again. Bombadil
Bombadil.
because why?
And then the final piece I have is for the new Alien film coming out next year, directed by Fede Alvarez, who did the 2013 Evil Dead, and I think also did that Don't Breathe movie. Coming out in August, but apparently Ridley Scott watched it and said it was effing great. The main reason I bring this up is because Ridley Scott is notoriously hard on movies that involve something that's close to him, and he heavily criticized Blade Runner 2049 and Top Gun Maverick, which I talked to you. His brother directed the original Top Gun. I didn't realize that Tony Scott is Ridley Scott's brother, but
Well, yeah. So those movies are good.
yeah, those are good movies.
So it's like criticize them, and they were like, if he has this track record of I criticize the movies that are associated with me that are bad, and I praise the ones that are good, I'd feel more confident about this. I don't have a huge association with the Alien franchise. I think I've only seen the first two. So I haven't really seen the controversial ones. So I guess this is only a good sign for this movie that I didn't know was coming out.
Fair enough.
Brokaw?
Yeah.
Did he say anything nice about any of the other ones? Like 2, 3, Covenant, Prometheus?
Well, he directed Prometheus and Covenant.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. Which that's one of my things I'm thinking, like, he directed, like, I think people are coming around on Prometheus a bit more. Like, it's still kind of iffy, but most people I feel like don't like Alien Covenant that much. And so, I don't know. He's directed some iffy Alien movies already. But yeah, I think I don't know how he feels about Aliens or the other ones.
No, I just want to see a xenomorph just duking it out with Napoleon.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I am not afraid of you, alien.
Yeah, I think I'll give it a Bergeron.
He puts
probably.
an alien in the guillotine. The xenomorph, its head cuts off, but it's got its little mouth on,
tongue thing. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give it a Bergeron, I think.
All right.
But that's it for Tom's this week, Jimmy. So with that, should we move on to some TOMPeyes?
Yeah, quick little TOMPeyes update. We did not do one last week.
Yeah.
But there are some things worthy of note.
Yeah, I think we should at least mention at least one of the things from last week, just because it was very notable. Popeyes, which is very notable for how good their biscuits are.
Good old Popeyes
We
biscuit.
love their biscuits. Not sponsored by
Bojangles
Popeyes.
makes a mean biscuit too.
Never had Bojangles, so I can't speak to that. But I'm eating my chicken last week. Very excited. I usually save my biscuit for the end.
I just didn't get a biscuit. I just did not receive one.
Last week you didn't?
Ever. No. Never got one.
Really? Oh, okay. Interesting.
Oh, wait. You know what? I got the wings. And I don't think they come with the biscuit.
Oh,
Because I normally
that
get the
explains it.
4-piece classic chicken combo. And it comes with a biscuit.
Sure.
The wings, I don't know if it was supposed to, but it didn't.
Okay. But I got a biscuit, and it was the worst biscuit I've ever had in my life. Not even like just a worst Popeyes biscuit, just like the worst biscuit I've ever had.
You took, first off, I was sitting there the whole time. You hadn't eaten your biscuit yet. Here I am biscuitless. Sometimes Holden doesn't eat his biscuit.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Sometimes I get too full.
and I'm thinking, I'm kind of hoping that Holden doesn't eat his biscuit today because I kind of missing out on the biscuit. The biscuit sounds great.
Yeah.
So Holden goes and grabs the biscuit to eat it. I'm like, oh, shoot, there goes that. I'm not going to get his biscuit. He eats it and his face goes like, what the heck? Like this biscuit tastes weird, I think is what you said. And I was like, well, here's my chance. Might as well just try this thing, give it a go. I pick up this biscuit and I try the other end. And at first, I'm greeted by the warm, fluffy, buttery flavor of the biscuit. And I'm like, wait, Holden's just delusional here. He's just being weird. And then about half a second later, this taste that is just dish soap registers into my brain. And I'm like, oh, I literally spit it. I spit it out.
He spit it out. And then I was like, oh, okay. If you're spitting it out, I'm spitting mine out because mine was still sitting in my mouth.
Disgusting.
It was bad.
Terrible. Good day to not get the biscuit.
Yeah.
At Popeyes. There was also like this very, I don't know, very like still person. When we got in line, there was like this guy standing by the cash register, like in a lot of layers of clothing, like a hood up, so you couldn't really like see them very well. And it's kind of awkward because they were like, I don't know if they've ordered yet or if they're waiting here. So I'm like, excuse me, sir, have you ordered yet? It's like, oh yeah, I have. Sorry, I'll get out of your way. And they're like super polite, but just like from the back, it's like this person kind of looks really intimidating. And there was another person who had like, I can't remember if this was the same person, but they had like this bag full of just a mess. Same guy. Just, it was a mess of Popeye stuff in this bag. And I think it was the same guy, because he's like, oh no, I'm just here to talk to the manager. And the manager comes out and they're like, yeah, we issued the full refund. And this guy was like super polite.
Yeah.
Just
the nicest guy who's ever asked to talk to a manager.
Yes. Just like the most polite person of all time, very understanding. And I looked down and this guy's also just like barefoot. And it was freezing outside.
I don't know what the deal was. He like had ordered some food, something was wrong with it, and so he was getting a refund. But he, like, his daughter had apparently like ate a biscuit out of it already or something, and so he was like, my daughter ate a biscuit already, so if you want to charge me for just the biscuit, that's
They're
okay.
like, oh, no.
They're fine, dude. It's
you're
like
good.
a 50-cent biscuit.
Yeah. So they let him go, and this guy's like barefoot and cold outside, and I was like, wow, that guy seems like a very nice man. Yeah. I hope his life is going all right and he has a good day. But then Soapy Biscuit this week, not that notable. They forgot to give me a biscuit at first.
Well, they swapped. You got spicy chicken and I got classic, which we usually get the opposite.
Yeah.
That's probably about the most notable thing.
Yeah. And I eventually did get a biscuit. And it was good.
Yeah, you went up and asked for it.
Yeah,
I was scared to try the biscuit this week a little bit.
Well, yeah,
after last week's experience, but it was good again.
It's always worth it.
Yeah, it is.
All right, that is TOMPeyes this week.
Always worth it. Always worth this discussion.
Always worth the discussion. We'll talk to you again next week, perhaps if we have another TOMPeyes visit. But hold on, it's time to jump into Loki season 2, episode 3, 1893.
All right, Loki, season 2, episode 3, titled 1893, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. It's called that because the majority of the
because the show starts in 1868.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it starts in 1868, but most of the episode is 1893 at the Chicago World's Fair, which Jimmy knows some about. I don't know a ton other than there's a big Ferris wheel.
It's actually the Columbian World Exposition.
Oh, my bad. All right. Is what it is. What do you think of this episode, Jimmy?
It was a lot of fun. It was definitely, I think, the strongest episode of the season thus far. And I think the reason why it's worked so well, other than just the fun setting, which we'll dive into here, but I think one of a great movie trope, like people talk about movie tropes kind of in a negative connotation, but there are things that work well. I think that in movie tropes, like, for example, like Christopher Nolan, I think this is my favorite Nolan trope, but like towards the climax of a lot of his movies, there are 3 concurrent storylines.
Yeah.
And I think that as a pacing thing, it works really well. And I think another trope is a lot of characters competing for the same thing.
Yeah.
And this, it's kind of competing over getting either Miss Minutes or Victor Timely.
Yeah,
the Kang variant.
The Kang variant, which I think, especially in this case, it works really well because we're vaguely aware of like what these people can do, and like we know, Sylvie gets introduced at some point. We know she can be pretty dangerous. We know Renslayer has Miss Minutes, which is this really basically omniscient AI, and then you have Loki and Mobius. So it's all these people, 3 parties interested in the same thing. Yeah, and it's just interesting to see how they each go about it. And they're all quite good at it. Yeah. So and then you put that into this kind of fun setting with a lot of mystery and intrigue going on, and it makes for a pretty compelling episode. So it looks like, we started the episode off. It's 1868. Renslayer is basically finds Miss Minutes, who tells her that
He Who Remains kind of backup plan
Yeah.
is to drop off the TVA guidebook at this cabin or this kind of shack where not He Who Remains, but Victor Timely, a Kang variant, lives. Which I don't know if that's just his stage name or if that's his actual name.
Yeah, I wasn't clear about that.
But that
would be a weird real name. Victor Timely. It's probably a stage name.
Leaves it there. They come back in 1893 to see kind of where he's picked up. And I like the idea that he's like, oh, these are really cool inventions that I cannot make with the technology of my time. So he's just kind of like this hack. What does he call himself? He says he's not a trickster. He's a luminary or something.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, he's essentially just like like scamming people with these like absurd inventions, and like he is like genuinely interested in like what the book presents with the TVA and time, you know, how it's constructed and everything. But yeah, as you said, he just doesn't really have the ability to do it, and so he's just making use of what he's got, which is he does know more than the average person about time and stuff, but just not the means of fully executing it.
Yeah. I really think there is something going on with Ouroboros. I think there's more to that. Whether it's like Kang stole his thunder and like basically all of these things were actually Ouroboros' idea and Kang just took all of them for himself.
That would be interesting. Yeah. And
even more radically, like Ouroboros is some sort of Kang variant. But I think there's something more there that is going to be explored.
I could see that, especially when get someone like Ke Huy Quan for that role,
who's been fantastic.
Yeah, he's always very good. I was going to maybe wait until the end to mention this, but there's this theory I saw online that I'm kind of thinking might be true as well, that Renslayer might be a Kang variant.
Renslayer is the King variant.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was an interesting, because we can kind of talk about that at the end of the episode.
Sure.
That's an interesting idea. I didn't consider that one. I thought when at the end, because Miss Minutes is like, oh, I have a secret that you're not gonna like. I thought that perhaps that Miss Minutes and Renslayer are actually the same person.
Oh, that could be too.
That was where my brain went, and that Renslayer's kind of was taken. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what my thought process was, but it was the idea that they were the same because they were both very obsessed with kind of getting Kang's favor. But I mean, Loki's obsessed with getting Sylvie's favor too. So I mean, it could be like their variants. I think that's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
I would something like Renslayer is somebody. Like there's more to it than that.
Well, and kind of the crux of that theory is that Renslayer and Kang are gonna kind of have a similar relationship to what Loki and Sylvie have. So it's gonna be just kind of like a evil or whatever, I guess, version of that. Just like there's gonna be parallels there, I think. So I think it would be very interesting if that was the case. I think that would explain a lot with her character, but we'll see.
They just write out what's his name with Renslayer. The actor, the Kang actor, what's his name?
Jonathan Majors. Yeah, well, that was actually something.
Write out Jonathan Majors with her as the Kang variant that wins.
Yeah, that was something else that I was seeing, where people were like, well, if she is a variant, they could do that theoretically, but
yeah, so that's interesting. I like those theories. It is back to fun Loki theory time, which is one of my favorite times.
I was telling you at Popeyes, I really don't at Popeyes. I really don't know where this season is going, because like this episode sets up so many things about like Miss Minutes having a lot more self-awareness than we even had thought previously. And just with like Kang variants.
Yeah, we get her motivation of wanting like a physical body and being in a relationship with Kang. He who remains.
He who remains, yeah.
He who must not be named remains.
Yeah. And so I don't know. There's just a lot of things at play here that I don't really know where they're all going, and it's kind of exciting. But
let's talk about some of the actual moments in the episode. Now.
Yeah.
We can talk about just the environment of the World's Fair, that setting. I think they nailed it.
It looks
Aesthetically,
great.
It looks really good.
I mean, I think a lot of it is like actual sets. I mean, I'm sure the Ferris wheel's green screen
They
and
built
stuff.
a real Ferris wheel.
built a real Ferris wheel.
500 feet.
But like,
It's
one of the
historically accurate, by the way.
One of the things this show, at least this season, has done, and I can't remember if season 1 does it, but there's a lot of scenes where it's just the two actors walking through a place for like an extended shot for like a really long time, which makes it look like very real because like they're they're not just in a big room with a green screen or whatever. Like they're walking through streets or whatever. They did it in the first episode. I remember when they were walking through like the TVA tunnels. That was like an extended shot there too. But it just makes it all look very real. How much of it is, I don't know, but at least the design of it looks pretty fantastic and realistic. So
I mean, yeah, from what I know from the book Devil in the White City and the images and descriptions that include in that, it was very authentic to what my knowledge is of it for the World's Fair, including kind of some of the key locations. Of course, the Ferris wheel being the main one, and then other main buildings, the light bulbs, the White City, kind of other things they talk about. Yeah, really cool. And I think they had a lot of fun with that environment. It felt like the vaudeville sort of shows in Red Dead Redemption 2 when you go to Saint Denis, which did you ever play that?
No.
You never played that game. Well, you can go and they have all these little performances and stuff, and it felt very much like that. So getting to see Victor Timely's show was kind of reminded me of that.
felt
And Jonathan,
kind of authentic to that.
Jonathan Majors was definitely chewing the scenery with that.
Yeah, he was.
Performance. I think he pulls it off pretty well. And then I like the idea of like, they're like, oh my gosh, he's actually done this thing. And no, he actually hasn't. He's just kind of made it look like he's been able to do this thing. And he's not a complete hack, but to these people he's scamming them.
Yeah.
So
with the mechanical pants or whatever.
the mechanical pants that are supposed to make him taller or something.
Yeah.
I'll come by next week. I'll give you $1,000.
Yeah, that's right. He sells his fraud loom invention.
Yeah. Reminds me of like A Million Ways to Die in the West, the first rated R movie I saw in the theaters.
Never seen it.
But there's a scene where like a guy like takes out a dollar bill, and this guy, this dad tells his son, "Take your hat off, boy. That there's a dollar bill," or something like that. Pay your respect, boy. Just a random line I remember about that movie that is most likely very bad upon rewatching.
Yeah, I don't know hardly anything about it.
We get the Ferris wheel fight too.
Yeah, Ferris wheel fight, which is pretty good.
I liked it. Before we go there, I liked the moment where Loki like put that guy in the cage or whatever outside. I thought that was a nice little touch.
That was good. Just makes him disappear.
Yeah, you get all these
The wonderful Loki, everybody.
the wonderful Loki. He'll be here all week. What? There's some other lines in this, and I'm like something like when they're in the loom room where they're all freaking out that the world's gonna end. Owen Wilson says something about like Mobius is like, oh, we got to locate the clock lady somewhere throughout time or something. And I'm like, if you just took this out of context and told me I need to be invested in a show where they're saying this, where Owen Wilson is saying this,
Very bizarre.
I'd be scratching my head. But it completely works.
The whole first part of the episode past the kind of intro section has such good Loki and Mobius banter, which we praise all the time. But I love Mobius taking the detour through the food kind of district. He's like, gotta search everywhere. He's like eating this whole thing, like thing of peanuts or whatever he's eating.
The Cracker Jacks.
Cracker Jack, that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had to visit the Cracker Jack stand because it was a high traffic area. It makes sense.
Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, classic Mobius stuff. We were robbed of a scene of them riding the tandem bicycle together. I mean, they hinted at it that they're going to ride it, and then it cuts them basically done riding it. There's a scene on the cutting room floor that we were robbed of some tandem bicycle shenanigans.
But then the Ferris wheel. It's pretty good. I think Loki does a good job of kind of making Sylvie rethink her kind of brash actions, but also you like kind of get where she's coming from because she like had settled down, and then like Loki and Mobius just come and throw her back into everything, and she's like, well, if I have to, be back into it. I'm going to go back to what I was doing.
Yeah. I think the TVA is gonna be destroyed.
Think completely.
I think by the end of they're dismantled.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe slowly and steadily. They will be restructured to ensure the prosperity of the branching timelines.
Oh yeah, that's I think that's where it's going.
Or maybe just destroyed because they're just going to return back to their normal lives and figure it out somehow. I think that there's going to be an end to the TVA, and that's how the show will end.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense. I mean, as much as, a Loki season 3 would be fun if they have the potential for it. But
do you think Loki will like sacrifice himself to ensure the free will of the universe?
Well, that's
at the end of the show.
I was thinking about that because, like, if
you're going to want to conclude this character at some point, right?
Yeah, I feel like Loki. I mean, we already have his conclusion in the movies, and so I feel like it would be weird to bring him back into those at all. And if you end the show at this season, I feel like you do have to.
That's right. I forgot that he died in Infinity War.
Yeah,
right?
he died in Infinity War, and then this is the version that got the Tesseract in Endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see him sacrificing himself. I feel like that would be a logical step for the character and probably a good way Tom Hiddleston would want to go out.
And then like Mobius is maybe oblivious of it back on Earth. Mm-hmm. And then he sees like some Loki statue on a Norwegian trip where he's riding the jet ski off the shore.
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh wow. We should look at those ancient Nordic ruins.
Mobius is going to end up on a jet ski.
At
his last scene is going to be on a jet ski.
If there's no Mobius on jet ski action, there needs to be an action scene
on a jet ski. That'd be good.
Tandem jet ski action sequence.
That'd be good.
Like the opening of the pacifier. We need some jet ski action sequence.
I've never seen the pacifier.
Well, it opens with the jet ski action sequence.
All right, I'll take your word for it.
I loved that movie when I was little. Other things to talk about. Miss Minutes gets big, scares everybody. They chase.
I like Miss Minutes adapting to the old timey stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was a good look for her. I think it was a better look, honestly.
Yeah, it was fun.
But yeah, then we kind of go to Kang's lab. He throws Renslayer off the boat because he doesn't take partners. Mm-hmm. And then Miss Minutes is like, we should be partners. I'm like, well, you don't listen to yourself?
Yeah, what the heck?
I could be your girl. That was a little disturbing.
I was like, ugh. It's kind of cringing in my seat.
I did feel bad for this Kang variant.
Yeah,
he's like, I haven't done anything wrong, but you will. Can you judge someone for something they haven't done yet, Holden? Brings up some good
Minority
questions.
Report.
Yeah, Minority Report. Only good.
I will say
Boom roasted Minority Report.
What about it?
I said only this was good. Boom roasted Minority Report. No, that movie's all right.
That's fine. The one thing that I'll say that I kind of bothered me, but at the same time I was just kind of laughing at it, was at the lab, just everyone shows up.
Yes. It's very much like Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, like the Shrieking Shack or whatever they call it.
That's a good comparison, but it was just like, okay, so they're here, and then, Mobius and Loki show up.
Stupefy.
Sylvie. Yeah.
There's Sylvie.
There's Sylvie. And it was just like, it felt very like, I don't know. It was very funny. I liked it a lot. It was kind of stupid, but I thought it was funny. I was just laughing by the end of it.
Yeah. But Miss Minutes and Renslayer are kicked out to the end of time.
Yep.
Where he who remains.
His corpse.
Yeah. He who must be renamed is.
He who must be renamed
is there just getting decomposed by the bacteria at the end of time. Do you think they'll run into the other? Do you think we'll get some end of time shenanigans?
I'm sure, yeah, but I don't know. I really don't know what exactly they're gonna do, because I don't know how Renslayer and Miss Minutes are gonna come back from it. I'm sure there's something there that they can use, probably some technology that He Who Remains had that they never took care of. But yeah, it's just I just don't know what direction it's going, really. Other than, I mean, the predictions we've made, I think, are solid, but it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, let us know down in the comments if you're on YouTube, or email in. Who do you think Renslayer is? Do you think she is maybe Miss Minutes, some tied to her some way? Do you think she's a Kang variant? Do you think she's her own person, and some other theory involves her in this in her past? Let us know. And do you think anything's going on with Ouroboros, like we talked about earlier on?
I hadn't really thought about that, but I really like that idea.
Because I just thought that, because it's like he wrote the TVA manual. They dropped the manual off to try to create Kang, essentially.
Yeah, I feel like Ouroboros has to be tied to the success of the TVA in some way. Like, obviously, Kang has to be, like, stand on his own as, like, a powerful threat and everything. So, like, I'm sure he didn't do nothing or whatever, but yeah, maybe it's Ouroboros is, like, key to creating the loom or whatever. And maybe that's why the loom in the past doesn't work, because, Ouroboros isn't there or whatever. Yeah. I feel like they have to strike a delicate balance with that, but it could be very interesting.
Yeah. Sweet. I think that concludes our discussion of Loki Season 2, Episode 3. Of course, next week we'll be back to review Episode 4 of, are there 6 again this season?
6 seasons. Yeah, this season.
All right, so we're halfway done. I enjoyed this episode quite a bit, and so did you. So stay tuned for our discussion next week. Until then, though, we have to go to our next show, which has also been very entertaining.
Yeah.
Gen V. This is episode 6, I believe, right? Episode
I think so. Yeah,
6. Titled Jumanji.
All right, Gen V, episode 6, titled Jumanji. That's a fun title.
Yeah, it is fun. No Dwayne Johnson, no Robin Williams,
Danny DeVito,
Jack Black, others.
Kevin Hart.
That's right. None of them, but some shenanigans. Shenanigans is my favorite word. There's some new mysteries to be unfolded. Last week we talked about we got to get like a Kate episode, right? And here's our Kate episode.
Yeah, we got a Kate episode here.
At least partially a Kate episode, where we kind of are diving back through her memories of different events in her life.
Yeah, the majority of the episode has who all's in there? It's Marie, Jordan, Andre, and then the one guy.
The one guy who gets blown up.
Yeah, just gets blown up. I mean, I was like, as soon as he was in there, I'm like, well, he's just there to die.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know
Put
anything
the
about
red
this
shirt
guy.
Star Trek thing on him.
Don't know anything about him. But yeah, they get trapped. Emma leaves before they get trapped, essentially.
To find Sam.
Yeah. But yeah, they spend most of the episode in the mindscape of Kate. And it's very interesting. They learn a lot about her. They learn a lot about each other, too. We Soldier Boy cameo.
Yeah.
Which was very funny.
Yeah, it was. So, we start off with Kate's memory of she told her brother to go away and never come back.
Yes.
Which is when she discovered she has powers. We see that, kind of just see that toll that it takes on her mom specifically, and herself, obviously, because she's basically locked into a room, her bedroom, until she goes to Godolphin University. Seeing her take like her calculus class online and just living in isolation, feeling like she's a monster. And then you get Dean Shetty comes and basically says, no, I'm on your side and I'm all warm and fuzzy and I'm not going to try to manipulate you because I think you're extremely powerful.
Yeah. So, Kate has this person who's coming in and, seemingly accepting her. And even though she's been growing up with this mom who hasn't been. So, of course, she's going to, probably take the advice of this woman.
Yeah. Little Palpatine to Anakin Skywalker sort of maneuver.
Yeah, yeah.
A little grooming, if you will. So I thought that was a really, really cool, interesting take to have on the situation. Makes sense as to why she could be manipulated. She just wants to be accepted and feel like she's not a monster. And she is a very powerful character. Her power is extremely potent because you could just manipulate anyone, even the strongest of all people at the school Golden Boy. And it makes you question what are my actual own thoughts and what are thoughts that you've planted in my brain and made me feel like, Andre asks a question like, do I actually really like you, or did you make me like you? Did you do that to Luke? Were you just there to manipulate him? And then basically her worst fears are being realized that maybe she is this horrible monster that she desperately doesn't want to be, but is being coerced to do by Dean Shetty, which is a very interesting take. And of course, she has her imaginary friend, Soldier Boy.
Yeah, which is just a very funny cameo appearance.
Yeah.
Has a lot of very good lines, and then he explodes.
He gets struck by brain lightning.
Brain lightning. Yeah. Whatever that was.
Yeah, not lightning.
Not
lightning brain thing that they need to get out there. Otherwise, they're going to be like Inception brain goo.
Yeah, and so that was very funny. But then we learned that like Jordan was like aware of Luke's. Like Luke had prior engagements with what's his name?
Mr. Krabs.
Mr. Krabs, yeah. Had previously kind of threatened Mr. Krabs. And Jordan kind of came in and put a stop to it. And that's when they became the TA for...
Is it Brink or something?
Yeah, I think Brink sounds right.
I don't know.
Which I was glad we got more of him in this episode.
Yeah, I was too. I was like, Clancy Brown is back.
Very exciting.
Gen V Clancy Brown.
He's so good at being like a bad guy, but deceptively not. He's got that demeanor about him.
Richard Brinkerhoff. I think they call him Brink, right?
Yeah, Brink.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was fun to see him again. Get a little bit more of everybody's backstory.
Kate had been cheating on Luke with Andre for
a while.
Yeah, a while.
Which
I guess like kind of makes sense. I'm kind of interested to see how that, lines up with what we see in the first episode or two. Cause like they kind of do seemingly jump into a relationship pretty quick. And I kind of thought that initially, but I mean, if they had a pre-established thing going, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a little bit more sense and makes Andre feel like a worse person.
Yeah. It was something he was trying to hide. Well, and like initially when he's like trying to leave that room, you're like, oh, well, he doesn't want to, be there because he feels bad about, getting a relationship with Kate so soon after Luke dying or whatever. But now you learn it's because, he was going behind his back.
Yeah.
Everything. So.
Yikes. We also, cutting back to, speaking of intimate scenes, we have the puppet intimacy.
Very funny.
Which is very funny. I'm like, this can't just be a straight up intimate scene. Like, there's got to be some sort of twist to it between Sam and Emma. And of course, it's Sam viewing Emma as a puppet.
Yeah.
And still going through,
yeah.
I guess, if that's his thing. But
yeah, their relationship is so fun. I really like that. It's very cute.
They're two kind of misfits that are nice together. And I like how their memory's all back because I felt so bad for Sam when Emma forgot about him.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking last episode. But yeah, no, it's good that all of their memories are just back. So now they're caught up to the point we are. Very nice that they don't have to spend a whole rest of the season getting back to that point.
But going back to Kate's memories, she was in the woods prior to all the investigative stuff we've seen in the season. By the kids, by the students, and basically telling Luke to forget and all this. And we also get scenes of the doctor. I don't know the doctor's name. The researcher.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Who basically is like, okay, well, we got it. We can control the powers of the soups. And Shetty's like, well, why don't you try to make them sick?
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a nice little twist on, usually it's like the researcher being like, it's not ready. We can't bring it to corporate yet, like Green Goblin or whatever.
It is a reversal of that. Yeah.
We will, like, the trial begins now or whatever he says in the Spider-Man. It's like, forcing it for the sake of money, where Shetty's like, you know what? Why don't we push the, why don't we do a little bit more research, It's like, no, we're ready to take it to Vaughn.
we don't need. Yeah, we're good.
No, let's push it. Let's push these things, and
then the soup ends up dying.
Which can you make it contagious?
Yeah, so that's interesting.
So
what's she playing at?
blackmail to the rest of Vought, or just like Vought, too many superheroes, Vought wants to get rid of them, they're a liability now or something.
Yeah, it could be any number of
a
things.
new way, or maybe they want to get rid of the old ones and the new ones that they can control themselves.
And they make it clear that the virus only affects soups.
Yeah.
So
I think it'd be cool to almost have it like that. And then so if this is going to connect with the boys, I could see Vought wanting to try to get rid of this Gen V, this generation of Compound V soups, and for this new serum that they have or whatever that makes them more easily controlled. So they can just, activate them, turn them off, basically turn them into their servants or slaves, these soup slaves, and then having our current group of heroes and anti-heroes having to band together to stop this, where we might have, now all of a sudden the boys' interests are aligned with like Homelander's interests or something like that. Oof. And I could see that leading to a really fun storyline.
That'd be a really interesting direction to go. So I could see that.
Yeah. So if that is the way they go, I would be really excited for that. If not, I'm excited to see whatever they come up with. But yeah, so this seeming like, the Woods is here to control the soups, or maybe it's to kill them off, maybe a little bit of both. I think that was a nice little cliffhanger to end this episode on. 2 episodes left, and I think this show continues to be wildly entertaining and standing by itself. It's fun to have the cameos, and it's fan servicey, but it doesn't hijack the show like it does in other shows,
like Ahsoka or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's able to stand on its own. I'm sure, like, people.
Seems like we have this good idea for this episode. Yeah. Also, it'd be fun to throw Soldier Boy in as a little bit of the thing. Yeah.
Even though you probably wouldn't understand everything, I think you could watch this show without having seen The Boys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like obviously there's a lot of context.
The Compound V stuff.
Yeah, that's a little bit,
but for the most part, I mean, you're missing some of the Vought stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it as the first thing you watch in this universe.
No, let's definitely jump in with The Boys first, but it is doing a pretty good job of standing on its own as a spinoff of something bigger. So,
yeah, really good. Anything else to say about this episode, Holman?
I don't think so. I guess they convinced Kate to wake back up and everything. Like Kate kind of has resigned herself. She feels bad about everything she's done, so she's like, I'm gonna die. It's happening. You guys can go.
Her eyes are looking rough.
Yeah, it looks bad. But Andre convinces her to leave, saying that he loves her, even though he doesn't know how he feels about everything that's been going on and everything, and feels betrayed. But yeah, they get out, and then Sam tries to beat her up, but they stop him.
They stop him.
Yeah.
Emma talks him out of it. So nice. Sweet. Episode 7 reaction and spoiler discussion coming at you next week. But now, Holden, it's time for the main event, which, of course, finally, we're going to dive into our review of Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese's highly anticipated film that just came out. We're going to start off spoiler-free. So if you have not seen it, you're safe to listen to the next segment of the show. We'll warn you before we dive into spoilers, so no worries there. All right, buckle up. It's time for Killers of the Flower Moon.
All right, Killers of the Flower Moon, new Martin Scorsese movie.
Yes. I got the synopsis right here.
That's Clancy Brown.
Yeah, that was Clancy Brown. Now I clicked over to the other tab. In the 1920s, members of the Osage Native American tribe of Osage County, Oklahoma, are murdered after oil is found on their land, and the FBI decides to investigate.
It's based on a book of the same name, Killers of the Flower Moon, by David Gran, a book that you've read.
A book that I read 4 years ago, yes.
Yes, and you have a big sheet of notes here for.
I did our bonus episode podcast, so I have 20 pages of notes.
Jesus Christ.
Over this podcast. Well, it's basically, this is the script of the podcast.
Okay.
So this is like the actual script. It was 40 minutes. Don't listen to that. It's way too fastly paced. It was for a final project for college. But there are some little tidbits of information that I do want to go back and share some quotes from Molly Burkhart, who is played by Lily Gladstone in the movie. So I have an actual quote from her that I want to share, as well as David Gran has a quote about kind of the character or the kind of the morality of the character played by Leonardo DiCaprio, whether or not he actually loved his wife, Molly Burkhart. This is Ernest Burkhart I'm talking about. So I think those are some things I would like to dive into, some explaining of kind of the logistical nature of how the money is flowing in Osage County with these things called head rights. But I'll save that stuff for spoilers for people who have seen the film. This movie, Elephant in the Room, it's 3 hours and 26 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's a long movie.
It's a long
Martin
movie.
Scorsese makes a lot of long movies. I don't think this movie dragged for me, though.
No, it didn't. It's
not fast paced.
No, it's not really fast paced. I feel like the trailers make it seem more exciting than it is. I like the few bits of violence that are shown on screen are like in the trailer, and like that's fine. I don't really mind so much. Like I find the whole ride very interesting. But if you're going in, you're expecting stuff like that the entire time, you're not going to get it. But the story itself is very interesting. It's very sad. It's very engaging. I think it's definitely worth it. I think
shocking. It's shocking from the standpoint of if you don't know anything about the story,
which
most
pretty much
people are not.
Yeah. It was very engaging. I think it justifies its length, especially with how much they had to get in there, and how much time they were spending on each of the characters and everything. So
it's an incredible adaptation. Because mean, when I read the book and we were talking about the movie, I was like, there's just like, how are they going to make this a movie? Like, it's so many people, so many moving parts.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated sort of story to tell. And I think Martin Scorsese did a very good job of explaining how it happens.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the book plays out more of as a mystery as to like what has happened. This movie is less of a mystery and more of like a here's what happened, kind of let's study the nature of these characters.
Yeah.
And the morality of these characters, which was a different take. I think it makes it less entertaining, but I don't think it makes it worse, if that's a kind of my angle at it, my take on it.
It's interesting because it isn't really a mystery. You kind of know who's doing what, but at the same time, you're kind of uncovering the depth of like the plots and everything that are going on as the movie happens. And so I feel like it isn't until quite late in the movie that you kind of have a full grasp of everything that's happening.
How wide scope this is.
The scope and everything. So there is still, some uncovering mystery element to it. Maybe not as much from an investigation standpoint, but just from watching the movie and picking up on clues. With that, we're not going to spoil who does what, because I feel like the trailer doesn't really give it away. If you don't know, right?
Yeah.
You said you thought you might have picked up on stuff from the trailer. I didn't really know anything from just watching the trailer. So I feel like if you've just seen the trailer, we won't necessarily talk about who does what.
I was gonna say I think the biggest that's the biggest difference between the book and the movie is just it's less of a mystery than the movie is. Also, just the FBI part of it. That kind of goes with that point that it's less a mystery. But the FBI part, Tom White, who's played by Jesse Plemons, his role is greatly reduced in the movie than it is in the book, where he's pretty much the second half of the book is kind of him unraveling this story and trying to figure it out, which I can see why why Martin Scorsese did it.
You don't
less of the FBI story, more of like this actual community and this main group of people, this main family, Lily Gladstone's family, who are the kind of the centralized victims of this story.
Yeah, while obviously the FBI did play a big part in getting the mystery solved and everything in real life, he didn't want to present it as like a white savior movie, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't want just the FBI to come in and save everything. So he presents it from a much more like empathetic lens from like the Osage and the actual people involved in the crimes and everything. So.
So this is just a really interesting story and crazy thing that doesn't get talked about. You're not going to find this story really in a textbook.
Which is crazy because it is like, as you said, had talked to me about, it's like the birth of the FBI, right?
It's the birth of the FBI, pretty much. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover is 29 when this investigation starts. Okay. So it's basically the first real big investigation by the FBI. Like at the beginning or when part of the movie, it's like literally, I'm like, Tom White's like, I'm from the Bureau of Investigation. They're like, what?
Yeah.
What is that?
I thought that was a good touch. No one knows what he's talking about.
Washington federal thing. They're like, okay, whatever, man.
I will say, without spoiling, the way even though it's not like the biggest focus, when the FBI comes into play, the way their investigation pans out is really cool. I think how the movie presents it, even though it isn't the main thing.
I can't remember what else I was going to say here, but so that's less of a deal. The book, I think, does a better job of explaining why certain things happen for a specific way, and exactly how this headright system works for how the Osage people got the oil money and logistically how that works. I think the book does a better job. I don't think it would have been that difficult to convey it in this. I think since it is kind of showing a lot of this conspiracy of how to do this, it needed like a little like chalkboard scene of like, hey, we need to do this in order to do this. And then it all lines up this way and connects the dots. I think it could have used that just from a standpoint of just clearly defining why they went about it this way. Because it was pretty meticulously planned out by the people who did this. And the movie, it's more like, okay, we're going to take out this person because it's going to get us more money. But it doesn't have that meticulous planning that the book has, that Tom White, the FBI agent, eventually like uncovers of, oh, this is why they did it exactly like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as someone who hasn't like read the book, I think the way they present it works for me because
you don't know what. Yeah, if you didn't read it, you don't know what it's missing. Like it doesn't feel like it's missing. I think it just would have added to it.
I maybe didn't know all of the details to the headright system, but I feel like I picked up on enough. I think my biggest concern with them including like a scene explaining it was it would feel almost talking down to the audience a bit too much. Like I feel like you're able to kind of pick up on what you need to know from the movie, and I feel like that's just kind of like the movie trusting you to figure it out almost. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't think it's really necessary.
Okay.
Personally.
I think it would have added to it.
Sure.
Given the audience more of like, okay, this is why they're doing it exactly this way. Mm-hmm. And this one person is very intelligent and manipulative and evil, which you get, but I just think it would have further characterized that development.
Without the performances are all very good.
Imagine that.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Robert De Niro, great. Leonardo DiCaprio, great. Lily Gladstone, great.
Yeah, very good. Pretty much everyone in this movie is great. I mean, even just the smaller bit actors who, I mean, I don't know most of their names, but
Jesse Plemons plays Jesse Plemons.
Yeah, but he's good.
He's great.
He's very good in it. I really liked that. But yeah, a great cast. One thing I wanted to mention was the score is very good, by Robbie Robertson,
which is a 100% a real name.
I think it is. Oh, it's Robbie's his nickname.
Yeah, I know, but it still is like Robbie Robertson.
Oh yeah, no,
it just sounds like the name you would make up in a.
He's one of the members of the band called The Band, which Martin Scorsese did the documentary The Last Waltz about. So he's had like this ongoing connection, I guess. But one of the things I wanted to mention about the score was it sounds a lot of it is very like subtle, like a lot of just very simple bass lines kind of going throughout the scene. And it sounds like ambient music from Left 4 Dead. Which if you've ever played it, you might know what I'm talking about, or if you watched the movie and you've played the game. But a lot of it, I was like, oh, this sounds like it could just be straight from Left 4 Dead, which has a very good soundtrack. So nothing wrong with that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was nice, added to the atmosphere, production value, and design. is great.
Mm-hmm.
They nailed it. The
Oh, yeah.
1920s Oklahoma aesthetic.
$200 million well spent, really.
Yes.
Making
The movie looks like it's $200 million.
Yeah, apparently it's the most expensive movie ever shot in Oklahoma, which I guess makes sense probably.
I'm trying to think what else.
Well, yeah, I
is
don't
shot
know.
in
I can't
Oklahoma.
think of another movie shot in Oklahoma off the top of my head. But I mean, the sets are huge and immaculate. There was that one shot towards the beginning of the movie that I don't know how much was real, of like all the oil rigs.
I think that was CG.
Probably most of it was. I feel like some of the closer ones were real or
Probably,
whatever.
yeah.
But it looked great though.
To me, there's like this main street in what's the name of the actual town here? I've got it somewhere. Gray Horse, Oklahoma, which is Osage County. The main street looks great.
Yeah.
And they're doing these kind of car races things, and it's just muddy and gross, and just they nailed it.
Yeah, it was awesome. What else non-spoiler wise?
I don't know if there's a ton to say left non-spoiler wise. I just think that this is probably a great movie to see, especially if you don't know anything about this. I will say I think the biggest advantage of the movie over the book is there's so many names in this book. I swear.
You can put faces to the name.
You can
in the
put
movie.
faces to the name in the movie, whereas when you're reading the book and it's like got 30 characters and it's like, oh, this connects to this, and then this person got murdered, and now this, and they're cousins with this and that and this. Like the first 100 pages of the book or something, I'm like, what is happening?
And I wouldn't even say it's like that easy to keep track of everyone. There are still so many characters in the movie. There were a couple of points where I was having a hard time keeping track of everyone, but I mean, by the end of it, I had everything straight. It was just like, I think it throws a lot at you in the first half. And then
Which the book does too.
Yeah. But as you're able to stew with it more and you spend more time with like each of these characters, you're able to keep track a little better.
Yeah. Nice. I think that's the big advantage here. So if you are not planning on reading the book or whatever, I think it's a great movie to see. It's and just a thing that people should know about American history. What this thing happened. I also saw a comment, I think it was on like Chris Stockman's review, that it was from a person from the Osage tribe who said, this is also not the only thing that's happened in our history.
Yeah.
Too, which is important to know. But yeah, no, I think it's a very fascinating and tragic part of of American history that kind of tells us about human nature and some of these things that people have done to other people for getting money.
I also think it has a very strong ending. I really like the ending to the movie. So obviously I won't spoil that, but don't want to just give that away.
When the aliens land and then they start whatever at the end of Close Encounters of a Third Kind. I think that's pretty much all to say non-spoiler wise. I think there's lots and lots and lots to say spoiler wise. So I think we save a lot for that discussion and we let people just go out and see this movie that you should see. I was very pleasantly surprised at how many people were at our movie.
Yeah. I mean, we did go Friday. We usually go Thursday night to movies, which are obviously going to be a little less busy, but we went Friday and it was very packed.
Mm-hmm. Which was
probably
great.
not sold out, but there were a ton of people there.
Yeah.
We got to like buy our tickets and we were surprised by how many people had
It was the farthest back I've had to sit in the theater in a while.
Yeah, same.
All right, Holden. So if you're going to score this, what are you going to give it?
I'm probably at like a 9.5. I'll go 9.5. I don't really have much issue at all with this movie. It's very good. See it in a theater if it all sounds interesting to you. I think it's definitely worth seeing there. So
yeah. Again, the pacing, it's not as fast as something like Babylon flew.
Yeah,
I think Oppenheimer flies to. Gun to my head, I liked Oppenheimer more, but I think that maybe just because I read this book already, so like the shock value of the story, I didn't get to experience.
Which one I would like more personally.
But I think both are very exceptional. It's cool that these kind of directors still at the peak of their powers are coming out with some great films that people are going out and seeing. So awesome. Awesome time to be alive for. And who said cinema is dead, Holden?
Who said cinema is dead?
All right. Sweet. All right. Let's dive into our spoiler discussion of Killers of the Flower Moon.
All right, spoilers for Killers of the Flower Moon, Jimmy. Where should we start? Beginning?
Start with the beginning.
All right, well, so we have Leo DiCaprio's character.
Ernest Burkhart.
Ernest Burkhart, who comes back from the war. He had what's his injury? I didn't fully understand.
He had some sort of back injury. He can't lift heavy things.
Okay.
Is basically what they said.
Yeah, I remember he couldn't lift things, but so yeah, he's working as a driver. He gets a job from his uncle, Bill Hill.
William K. Hale.
Yeah, or Hale, yeah.
William K. Hale.
They
King
call
of the Osage Hills.
Yes. He gets a job as a driver and starts driving around this lady, Molly Burkhart, or Molly, what's her, I don't remember what her maiden name is.
I can't remember either.
So
the book starts like 45 minutes into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the, and then
Kyle.
David Gran the author of the book, doesn't spend a lot of time on all this backstory that they flesh out at the beginning of this movie. In the first 45 minutes. It's like a chapter or two, something like that.
Okay.
He does talk about it, but the book starts with the night Anna is murdered. So they have this house party. Anna is murdered, and a lot of the book is who killed Anna Burkhart. Is like a lot of the book, and that's not nearly as much of a thing in this movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, which again, it's more of the investigation. Who alibis are they checking out this night? What exactly happened? The autopsy, which that stuff is in here. It's just not nearly as much of a focus.
Yeah, it's much more of a chronological look at events in this.
And it's a lot more of an analysis of Molly and Ernest's relationship, which I think they nailed. I think that it is the strongest part of the movie is their relationship. I think it's very compelling because they just that was the part of the book that I'm like, does Ernest love her or does he not?
And it's strange because in the movie I feel like each scene with them together, they have to like prove their love to me.
Yes.
Right. Like it's every time I go into a scene, I'm like, I cannot tell how these people feel about each other. Because it's like, we get so much information about Ernest or Molly or whatever. And then we get into a scene and it doesn't help that Molly is like very reserved and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to read her in general, but yeah, you get into a scene with them together, and then by the end of the scene, most of the time they prove they are, have feelings for each other, and they, in love or whatever. But it's just like it's not convincing enough to carry throughout the movie, which I think is completely on purpose. Because with everything that happens involving Ernest and her family, it's like, well, he does love her, but he's also willing to do all of these horrible things to her.
Yes,
like. It's very complicated.
So here's what basically that says in the book. So Ernest migrated to Oklahoma from Texas, where he'd grown up as the son of a poor cotton farmer. He came to work as a ranch hand for a successful uncle, a beloved local man named William K. Hale. David Gran in the book, this is this next part here is a literal quote from the book. He has a tendency to drink moonshine and play Indian stud poker with men of ill repute, but beneath his roughness, there seemed to be a tenderness and a trace of insecurity, and Molly fell in love with him. And then the next part I paraphrase from the book. Though Molly knew some English, Ernest studied her native language so he could converse with her more naturally. He demonstrated his commitment to Molly by helping her cope with her diabetes and by telling her that he couldn't live without her. Ernest's friends ridiculed him for his love for Molly, but that didn't stop them from getting married in 1917, 4 years before Anna is murdered.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it is like in the movie version, it seems very much like William K. Hale's like, go court an Osage woman.
Yeah. He's pushing him to do that, but he feels, and I mean, based on what it seems to be in real life, he feels like he's doing it out of, good intentions, like pure intentions, I guess. He does really have feelings for her. He feels like that's not anything that his uncle influenced. But yeah, that's That's interesting to hear that about the real life stuff. But I mean, he like in the movie, I guess pretty much everyone, I mean, Molly does speak the Osage language some, but it seems to be more like everyone's just speaking English in this.
I don't know if that's just for like,
it's probably just,
movie
accessibility for, general audiences.
But there are scenes where they are talking to each other. In the Osage language. Again, in this, it's like Anna gets murdered, and William K. Hale in the book is like very much like, I want to help you figure out who did this. Puts a lot of money towards it. Which again, this is in the movie, but we already know at an audience, like as an audience, like William K. Hale is not a good dude. He's trying to manipulate this to get as much money as he can, and that is not a thing in the like. You are suspicious in the book of like, why is this guy so involved? But in the movie, it's just like straight up, this dude is a manipulative, evil man who's willing to murder people and hurt people for money.
Well, and I love seeing it, how it's presented in the movie, because we just get to see how two-faced he is. Like the entire movie. Like he's, most people see him as this good guy, very generous. He knows all the kids. I mean, he knew Molly as a kid and talks about how, much of a troublemaker she was and everything. And then, like, he's just doing these insanely evil things behind their backs. And Robert De Niro is so good.
Yes.
This guy.
He nails the press. Because, like, in the book, you definitely are reading it. And he's like, this guy seems like a force of nature in this community. And Robert De Niro nails that. I think Leonardo DiCaprio's performance is even more incredible because he's playing less of a concrete character. Like, we don't know exactly what his characterization is. So I think bringing that nuance and that ability to interpret it of either way, like he doesn't love her, he does love her, or somewhere, where in that gray area, the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio pulls that off, I think is even more noteworthy than an already incredible performance by Robert De Niro.
Well, and Leo, his character, frankly, is just pretty stupid.
He's dumb. He's dumb in the, like, he's not very bright in the book either. And which is also a thing that's like, well, is he just coerced by his uncle who clearly is very intelligent?
Which it's the movie makes seem it's unclear. It's not really taking a stance one way or another, but there is a lot of him being manipulated by his uncle, and him being kind of unsure. There's a great scene later on where he's signing the rights over to, or like the will or whatever it is, to his uncle, and he's clearly being manipulated there. But yeah, he's just not that bright. There's the scene where he tries to have the one guy steal his car for the insurance money. It's just like this poorly thought out scheme.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't make any sense really if you stop and think about it.
And Hale paddles him on the butt.
That's right. Yeah.
I have some more information for the book about William K. Hale that I think is interesting as well. So in my notes, I have, in general, Hale was a highly respected figure in Osage County. Politicians needed his support in order to win elections, and many of the Osage Indians considered him the county's greatest benefactor. So Hale had provided support for the Osage, and this is a quote from the book, before they were flush with oil money, donating to charities, schools, and a hospital. So he was doing this stuff before all the oil stuff came in too. So it's interesting and
opportunistic, I guess.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, this guy was already a force in his community, and then he saw the opportunity to get more money, and then he did this. So it's like, like that's hard to grapple with a little bit, that he was, maybe there is this two-faced nature of him. And when did he start to rationalize this violence? And was he always like that, or did he become greedier over time? I just thought that was interesting when I was going back through my notes that David Grant had written about that before.
Yeah,
saying that he was highly respected, before all the money. So was he involved in other schemes to get money out of them, or was it just the opportunism of, hey, I'm respected, I could get away with this, sort of thing. Maybe that sort of psychopathic tendency of like, oh, if I don't get caught, it's okay thing. Or like, I've done all these good things, I can take this now.
Yeah.
Because it's more justified.
Sick rationalization.
Yeah.
Tangent. I was thinking about Hale and Byron, the brother or whatever. I was like, I recognize that actor.
Yeah, what's he in?
He's David in the Last of Us show.
Oh, that's what he is.
I was like, and he's in other things too. Like I'm pretty sure he was in El Camino.
Brian Burkhart, I think is his name.
It's Brian. I thought it was Byron.
I think it's Brian, unless I have it in my notes wrong.
Letters switched around. But yeah, so I just now remembered that, and I
was
hadn't
like,
looked
he
it up
looks
yet.
so familiar.
No, it's Byron.
Byron. Huh. In my notes, I have Brian, so I must have written it down from the book wrong.
Unless it's different in the movie, but I don't know if it would be. They just changed those two letters for some reason.
Here, let me look at the book. I don't know if it says anything.
Probably.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. What else can we talk about this movie? I mean, plenty. So the first killing, I mean, so the movie makes it apparent that there have been killings prior to like what's happening. But the first kind of one that Leo Ernest gets involved in is, who is it?
That Ernest,
like the first death that's like of the family. Who's the first death of the family?
I think it's Minnie. Is it one of the daughters?
Oh,
Is,
yeah,
like,
that's right,
Is poisoned.
Yeah,
seemingly. Which in the book, it's like she dies of this mysterious illness, and it's I think Bill Smith, who's the guy who gets blown up, is like, I think she's poisoned.
Yeah. Well, in the movies, if I don't know if in real life if they just say mysterious illness, like they imply that it's poisoning in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie,
but
like,
it's not like taking a stance or anything. It's still just like, I mean, she could be sick, but probably poison.
I think they said that probably poison.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the kind of a lot of it. The beginning of the movie is establishing William K. Hale and that relationship with Ernest, kind of telling him to go court Molly. We get that kind of courtship, him working to get Molly's favor, their marriage, and then it goes to the murder of Anna.
Yeah.
And them discovering her body.
Yes.
Which that happens the same night as what's his name? The other guy who gets murdered that same time. I don't have it it's somewhere in my notes here, but it's a lot of pages.
Is it in the movie?
Yeah, it's Charles Whitehorn.
Oh yeah.
Which is their cousin.
He gets taken out
executed
to
style.
Yeah, to the rigs and gets. So that's the same day.
I believe so. The same day Anna's corpse had been found. An oil worker discovered another body within Osage County. It was Charles Whitehorn, Anna and Molly's cousin. He had been shot.
Oh, did they make that
style.
clear that he's a cousin? I thought he was just another guy.
No. But here's a good quote from the book. They found Anna on her back with her hair twisted in the mud and her vacant eyes facing the skies, worms eating at her corpse.
Yeah,
that's nice description,
so
David Green.
That party scene, the night that Anna gets murdered, is, I mean, that's the most we get of Anna throughout this movie, and she's makes quite a
she's got her gun.
Yeah, she's got her gun. She's drunk.
I don't remember the gun being a thing in the book. She's definitely drunk in the book, but I don't remember the gun.
It's like, there's just such a sense of dread when Byron's taking her home. You're like, well, she's going to die. Like, this is so obvious. And it's also very depressing because like, it's so obvious to us what's going to happen. And then like, they just like, no one figures it out like after like initially. I mean, obviously that's, Hale's influence and everything, but it's
well, the
depressing.
big thing is they found like her purse at home, which suggests that Byron had dropped her off.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing. What they found out later from eyewitness testimonies is that Byron they took her out again to like the saloon or whatever, and then they took her and executed her.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing there because all these other people had alibis, and I can't remember exactly why. And that's why it's such a big mystery in the book is like, okay, well, who, like, her ex-husband, Oda Brown, was like a big suspect as well, and they disproved it was him. So it's like, if it's not, his ex-husband would be a clear motive. It wasn't the guy who drove her home, then who killed her, on this night where she was drunk and all this stuff. So that's the big mystery of the book, that Hale's like, oh, I'm totally going to support you in trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And the Shawn brothers, who are the doctors, play a big role in the book too. And they found out that they had manipulated the autopsy, and they most likely destroyed the bullet evidence or something like that. And I think they had killed, I think they were the ones who maybe killed the other guy that they found, the Whitehorn. That night.
Well, I guess that would make. They don't make that clear in the movie, but it is like two guys. So I guess that would make sense. To
kind of put into perspective how much money they had from these head rights, and just some more information about it. So you've seen the movie if you're listening to this. So let me find where I got the head rights stuff here. Come on, where are we at in my notes? Here we go. So here's the thing. So when they got all this land, there were 2,229 people in the Osage tribe. And they were each given so many acres of land, and then they each received an equal claim to everything under the land, the mineral rights under the land. So that's when they discovered oil. It didn't matter whose land it was. The tribe, everyone who had a head right, shared that equally.
Sure.
So the problem is head rights could only be inherited. You can't just will them to someone else. They have to be inherited by a member of the tribe or something, from one of the original 2,229. And then those head rights it wasn't evenly broken off after that. It was from the 2,229 original ones. Let's say I had a spouse and 2 kids. So when I die, since I have a spouse, 2 kids, that's 3 people. Now each of those people have a third of a head right.
Of your head right. Sure.
If I just had a spouse and I died, that spouse would get all of my head right. So it was broken up by inheritance. And the big thing in the movie is they killed the people in a certain order so that the inheritance is passed to very specific people. And basically William K. Hale's idea was to funnel all the money back to Molly Burkhart. Mm-hmm. So the plan was to kill these people in a very specific order so that the money came to them. And one of the big things that Tom White, Jesse Plemons' character, the FBI agent, figures out in the book is the reason why Bill Smith and Rita Kyle, or Rita Smith, I guess, Molly's sister, they're blown up, is because they had to die simultaneously in order for this inheritance to work the way that Hale needed it to work, for it to go back to Molly. And Bill actually survived for 4 more days, even though he was in really, really rough shape. So that plan didn't work out the way that they had intentioned.
Sure.
They had intended. But I have some facts for how much these head rights were actually worth. If I could find them, if I just look up the dollar symbol, that should help me out. All right. I got the life insurance policy stuff. All these things were very accurate. So Guardians and stuff. So they talk about how Molly, she's introduced herself as incompetent. Mm-hmm. Basically, they had a competency thing. It's what percentage Osage are you? If you're a full-blooded Osage, you were deemed incompetent. You're half, maybe not. So you had to have a guardian to look after your money, which I think they kind of imply a lot in the movie. Mm-hmm. They literally, towards the beginning, they're like, all right, guardian, people without guardians over here, guardians, whatever over here. Molly's guardian was Ernest. Okay. Which I don't think they make clear in the movie.
No, they don't really have that be a factor in.
But the Guardians completely manipulated that. So, I have it here. Historian William Broad describes how it was typical of Guardians to buy a car for $200 and then sell it to their ward, their person, Osage person, for $1,250.
Jeez.
They're just completely manipulating that situation. Here's the guy. I got a whole thing about why it was should I read this or no about why the head rights would go to certain people? Or
No, I
just
think
skip
it's
that?
okay.
All right.
I think we.
Here we go. Here's this point. The whole idea was Hale would inherit an estate worth $2.5 million, as well as an annual head right income of $250,000. That's 1921 money.
Yeah.
So this would be worth, through doing all these killings, Hale would have inherited over $36 million. This is in like 2019 money. So even more than this, like more like $40 million. And then have an annual head right income that would have been like $4 million.
Jeez.
So that is from what all this stuff was. And I have somewhere like what these are worth in today's money, each of the head rights, but I'll look for that while you're kind of adding your thoughts to this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The way the head rights work in the movie, I feel like it's, as I had kind of mentioned before, it's just kind of like sprinkled in stuff. Like, I guess the incompetent thing, I didn't really understand, what that was necessarily entailing, but it's,
you
don't really need to know.
No.
Yeah. And like the Guardians thing, I kind of, they don't really explain it, but I was just kind of inferring based on what was happening in the movie. I was like, I kind of get that. But I feel like there's just enough breadcrumbs in the movie to make it, understandable, even if you don't necessarily have all of the details.
So here's a fact I have for you. So in 1923 alone, the Osage distributed the modern day equivalent of over $400 million in the oil money between the 2,229 head rights, or about $180,000 per head right per year. So that's $180,000 that year.
Yeah.
And that's 2019 money, so it's probably more like $200,000. Considering that most families at the time had multiple people with head rights, the standard of living in Osage County was exceptionally high. David Grant he says that there are journalists and newspapers that call them the red millionaires, with their brick and terracotta mansions and chandeliers, their diamond rings and fur coats and chauffeured cars. Again, the richest county per capita in the world at the time, which is incredible. And I think they did a really good job of, I remember like these photographs in the book of these people, like these people just dressed up very elegantly with their cars and chauffeurs. I thought that was
the beginning of the movie does a good job with that.
Really well portraying it. Like, it reminded me of those pictures that are in the book. So I thought they captured that really, really well.
Should we talk about Molly and her diabetes?
Yes. So that's part of the book where she just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And then basically Ernest goes to jail or gets like arrested, and then she gets immediately better. Like probably poison. And all these other people are getting slowly poisoned. That was a big thing.
Yeah, so they get the insulin, which at the time was like such a commodity. They make it clear in the movie that like
brought to you by William K. Hale again.
Of course, William K. Hale. But like 5 people in the world have this kind of treatment or whatever. So injecting her with insulin, and then at some point he has to start putting this extra thing in there. And they don't, at least in the movie, they don't tell him what it is, but it's very clear it's some sort of poison, and he can pick up on that too, but he's still doing it, which is just really sad.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily she ends up okay after that whole situation, but at least in terms of her own health. But yeah, it's her watching her get worse in the movie was just really depressing. It's very slow burn. Probably most of the second half of the movie is just that.
And you're just like thinking, how can you be doing
how
this?
can you like justify this? And he still talks about how he loves her and everything. There's the one scene where like they reveal that Molly's pregnant again.
Yeah.
With the last child, and Hale's just like, why are you why? Like, do you not see what you're doing right now? Like, why are you having another child with her? He doesn't say that, but and Ernest is honestly in that situation probably just too dumb to pick up on what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just like cold-hearted, calculating nature of William K. Hale is hard to believe. How this man, literally tens of people died at his hand to help him earn this money, which he doesn't even need.
No, he's already
already respected. He already is loaded, and he's just like, secure my family.
That's just one of the big things that I was like, oh my gosh, you're already loaded, but
incredible to believe. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, around that point in the movie when like the poisoning is starting to happen is when the FBI comes in, including Jesse Plemons' Tom White character.
Yeah, again, who is a much bigger character in the book. But yeah, I think this movie does a nice job wrapping up all these things. Again, this is where the book is like, oh, this person is tied to this person, which is tied to this person, and that refers to this thing that you read 10 chapters ago, and this and that. And it's such a big conspiracy with so many victims that's like, holy cow, how do I wrap my mind around this? How are they going to make this into a movie? Yeah. And they pulled it off.
And instead in this, it's like at the beginning when we first find, like, there's the one scene where Ernest like robs those people with like the sack on his head or whatever. And that's the first time I was like, oh geez, like this guy is already like up to no good. And then like throughout the movie, you kind of, feel like he's being involved in more and more. And there's a few scenes where it's like later revealed that he was involved, like killing the private investigator or whatever.
Which I don't remember that in the book. It could have certainly been a thing because there's so much information.
Yeah. But who's involved, but the mystery in the movie is just figuring out, as you kind of said earlier, the kind of the breadth of everything and how deep it goes. And it feels, at least for someone who didn't know what was happening, it was very interesting seeing how deep it goes, and it's very surprising. And yeah.
I think the core of this movie to me is the relationship between Molly and Ernest, and the complexity of it, I think, is just really intriguing to explore. So even though this is in the book, even though her health immediately improved, she refused to believe her husband was involved in such a heinous crime. So this is an actual quote from Molly Burkhart. My husband, Ernest, is a good man, a kind man. He wouldn't have done anything like that, and he wouldn't hurt anyone else, and he wouldn't ever hurt me. So Molly clearly has feelings for Ernest. As for Ernest having feelings for her, I have a quote from an interview with David Grant on his thoughts, because he obviously spent a lot of time researching this. So when asked if he believed Ernest Burkhart married Molly to gain control of her head right, David Grant responded, from the available records, we don't know for sure, but Molly Burkhart's descendants believe the marriage had been conceived as part of the scheme. So that's David Grant's official kind of statement as of, let's see when this would have been. That was 2017.
In the movie, it's, as I mentioned before, Molly's kind of a hard character to read, but it seems to be up until towards the end, she has some, she still kind of believes her husband, right? That's kind of the sense I get. And it's not, there's that like final scene between the two of them where she confronts him about the poisoning, which I would guess is made up for the movie. That feels like it's kind of like a movie.
The poisoning of who?
Or when the scene where she talks to him and is like, did you poison me or whatever?
Yeah, I don't think that.
That feels very movie-ish, but I mean, it's still a good scene. Up until that point in the movie, she clearly is giving him some of the benefit of the doubt. And he still seems, at least in the movie, to like clearly love her and like think what he's doing is ultimately a good thing. Maybe not fully understanding the scope of what he's accomplishing. But yeah, their relationship is just very interesting how it's presented there.
Yeah. And how, I mean, because he seems like he's indebted to his uncle, so he goes through with all these terrible things. But if you took William K. Hale out of the picture, who is Ernest Burkhart, and is it fair to judge him by that? by that hypothetical, or do you need to judge him by his literal actions?
Yeah. Before I forget, I remember this one part of the movie that is, it reminds me of in Oppenheimer, the quote
Are you spoiling Oppenheimer? Just for our audience.
It's like a quote from Oppenheimer.
Okay, so
I don't know. It's the quote where the one guy's where they're like discussing where to drop the bombs, right?
Okay, yeah.
And the one guy's like, well, don't drop it on
Edu or whatever.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's
Honeymooned.
right. It reminded me of that in terms of tone, and that it was funny, but also like really depressing. There's the one scene of the guy talking to his lawyer or whatever, and he was like, you know, if I had kids with an Osage woman and theoretically they died or whatever, would I get the money? And he's like, well, sir, it sounds like you're gonna kill these kids or whatever. It's like, no, like. That was a scene where it was like it got a good chuckle from the audience, but then also like everyone's like, oh my gosh.
Some dark humor.
Yeah. It which is kind of surprising. It is overall just a very sad movie, but it does have some moments of levity, which you kind of feel bad for thinking are funny. Yeah. I think almost like that scene.
Just to clarify, I might have misspoke earlier. So you did not have to be Osage to inherit a head right at the time of what they call the Reign of Terror, which is when all these murders are happening. However, in the aftermath of the Reign of Terror, the Osage persuaded Congress to pass a law barring anyone who was not at least half Osage to inherit a head right. So in the aftermath of this, you couldn't. But while this is happening, yes, it all could funnel to Ernest after Molly died. And then, then what happens to Ernest? Does Hale take out Ernest? It's like this guy does not have... is it just the Dark Knight situation where the Jokers are taking out the other henchmen until you get to the top of the food chain?
Well, that's what it seems to imply with that scene I mentioned earlier, where he's like, it's just a precaution. Sign this thing where I get all the money if you die or whatever. But yeah, I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if
even if he's a cog of this, is he also a victim of it? And again, does that make him any less culpable?
Yeah.
Which... I don't know. There's, I would feel for people passing judgment on him and people who feel more empathetic towards him. And that's why, again, I think the character is so fascinating. I think that's why it's such a good idea to put their relationship, Molly and Ernest, at the core of this movie. And I think that's the part that I think they just 100% nailed.
Yeah.
Which was very difficult to pull off, and they did. So awesome job on their behalf. Good job. Otherwise, Holden, you wanted to speak about the finale, what or the ending of this movie. What did you like so much about how this movie wrapped up?
So, I mean, obviously you have the trial and everything, which is all very good. You got Brendan Fraser and John Lithgow.
That's right.
Which I didn't know he was in this movie. I thought that was funny. Pet Sematary Man. It's just always even though he's more known for other things, it's always what I think of. But no, so the movie ends at like a hard cut to like a radio show presentation thing, and it's essentially like a verbal presentation of like what often happens at the end of a lot of these like true story movies,
and the text,
that kind of thing. They're just talking, but I think what I really like about it is it feels like to me Martin Scorsese kind of being self-aware and self-reflective about how like true crime usually is. It's kind of like a comparison almost where like you have this whole movie which is very empathetic towards the victims and everything, and then it's just cold cuts to this like radio show which is presented in not every true crime podcast or show or whatever, but in a similar vein where it's just like the facts. And they're playing like sound effects and everything, it's a band or whatever in the background. It's very just cold and not really thinking about the events or everything. And I think that also ties into Martin Scorsese himself being in there too, where it's like he's aware that what he's doing isn't necessarily helping, but he's just trying to. I think he's trying to show that his movie is at least being a bit more empathetic. He's like trying his best with the events given, but he's never going to be able to truly do the movie justice or the story justice.
I forget. He comes out and literally Martin Scorsese has a cameo where he says
Yeah.
something. What was that? I forget what his person said.
I was trying to remember exactly what it is he says. It looks like, so on here, he pretty much gives the details about Molly afterwards, after like the events of the movie. And it like the final line is literally something like talking about how the obituary just like doesn't mention the murders at all or whatever. So
This event was erased from history.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. And so I just think there's the reason I like it is because it is so like bizarre. It's a play on how these movies are often end, but there's like a lot of self-awareness and self-reflection there in regards to like true crime stories and stuff, I think. So it's not as hokey as maybe that, radio show is usually, but
Yeah. Nice. Anything else to say about Killers of the Flower Moon, Holden? We've been talking about it for a good chunk of time now.
I don't think so. Not necessarily.
Very well done. Clearly going to be up for a lot of Oscars this year.
I guess question for you. I've seen a lot of mixed things online about. What do you think about Brendan Fraser for the limited time he has? I thought he was good.
I thought he was fine.
Yeah,
I wasn't like he's very like sly lawyer guy.
Yeah, he's kind of over the top. I think what people maybe don't like about him is he's very loud, he yells a lot. I would say most of his lines are yelled or whatever, which could be seen as over the top, maybe chewing the scenery. But I also think that like he's just doing it. He's like the character's doing it as like an intimidation tactic too. Yeah. He's clearly like Leo DiCaprio.
It didn't bother me.
Yeah, I thought it was good. So other than that, I don't think there's really much else.
Yeah, well, if it doesn't win Best Picture, who takes it down? Be interesting to see.
I don't know. I mean, I think Oppenheimer still has a shot.
I do too. It'll be interesting to see how audiences compared the two. Right?
Yeah.
The 3 hour plus historic epic.
Yeah. Currently those are the big two. Who knows? You could throw Napoleon in there potentially, but I think these are the two guaranteed heavyweights for Best Picture. Alongside, I'm sure, like a Past Lives and whatever.
Past Lives, yeah.
But these are the big movies that I think are going to get nominated, and it's really hard to tell, really, what way people will go. Both are very good, so.
Lily Gladstone's got to be. I mean, she's a lock for a nomination. I would, if I had to put money on it today, I would say she wins an Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Past Lives, that main actress in that is apparently very good. I haven't seen it myself.
We haven't seen it yet, no.
But yeah, aside from like those two, I don't really know who else. There aren't any like other obvious nominations, I don't think necessarily. No. But there's plenty of time still in the season.
And when it comes down to it, awards are meaningless.
And it is.
But it's fun to speculate.
As much as I, loved Robert Downey Jr. and Oppenheimer, I think I'm probably a Robert De Niro in this movie, edging that out maybe. Both are, once again, it's hard, very, very close. Yeah. I did really like him in this movie, even though Robert De Niro probably has several Oscars under his belt.
Yeah. All right. That's Killers of the Flower Moon. Holden, we're on to our last segment, which, of course, is What Are You Doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
No, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
No, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
All right. This week, Jimmy watched a couple movies. Last night, actually, I watched Dawn of the Dead, the Zack Snyder movie.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
Well, so I've been trying to focus on watching some horror movies since it's October or whatever. I usually do that. And I was just flipping through Peacock and I saw it and I was like, oh, I've heard good things about it. And it is pretty good. It's probably my favorite Zack Snyder movie that I've seen from him. I always forget James Gunn wrote the script for it.
Really?
Yeah. So Zack Snyder directed, James Gunn wrote. It is very well written. It's very, I think.
Why did James Gunn? Oh, James Gunn. Sorry, I was thinking James Wan.
Yeah, no, James Gunn. Yeah, no, he wrote it, but I think the thing I like most about it is it's not totally, because it's Zack Snyder's first movie that he did, and it's like not totally embellishing in every Zack Snyder isn't
Yeah.
yet. There is a lot of slow-mo, but I think the slow-mo is punctuated really well in the action scenes, and it's mostly just like people firing guns. Like there's like shots of Ving Rhames as one of the main characters in the movie. There's like shots of him pumping a shotgun shell coming out, and I think it's very effective. But the set pieces in it are very unique. I think the movie as a whole, because the whole concept, if you're unfamiliar with even the original Dawn of the Dead, this is the remake. It's like people in a zombie apocalypse get like holed up in a mall or whatever, and they're trying to survive. It's a concept that I feel like has been done to death kind of at this point with zombie media. It's very iconic. I think probably because Dawn of the Dead is such an iconic movie. But the set pieces they get with it are so interesting. There's an escape sequence towards the end that is very harrowing. All the performances in it are great. I think a lot of there aren't really too many. There's like maybe one, but like annoying characters. There's so many in these like survival apocalypse movies. There's like a character that's annoying and just ends up dying for a stupid reason or whatever. I don't think there's really that here. There's some annoying characters, but I feel like most of their motivations are understandable. And it has a pretty good ending too. So if you like zombie movies, I think it's well worth a watch.
Nice.
So, and then the other big movie I watched this week is Possession, which I think it's a French and German movie, but it's English language from like the 80s. I often see it on like greatest horror movie lists. I can't remember the lead actress's name, but Sam Neill is
Sam Neill's in it.
Yeah,
huh?
he is. It's very bizarre because I
From
feel like
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
You know, people would recognize him.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of his first big movies he was in, and it's very disturbing. What?
The demons, they move in herds. They do move in herds.
It's a very disturbing movie, but it's filmed in a really weird way. I mean this with all respect to those involved. It kind of feels like it was made by a crazy person. It has some of the most like unnatural, like weird camera movement and placement I've seen in a movie. It feels like the camera is like constantly moving and like not really giving you a chance to breathe. The characters kind of act very bizarrely and like in terms of how they're written. And at first it was kind of hard for me to get on board at first, but by the end it's like it's so weird and gross, and I was fully into it.
Nice.
I'd recommend this movie if you haven't seen it. It has a very iconic scene in a subway where it's essentially like a long take of this woman just going crazy for like 3 minutes straight. It's very good. It's probably the best part of the movie. It's one of the most iconic.
Did you say this was on a streaming service?
I watched it on Shudder.
Okay.
I feel like you can find it on others though. Like I said, it's one of those movies. I feel like at the time it didn't do particularly well, but it has quite a cult following now. So, highly recommend that if you get the chance to see it. Other than that, I finished the Castlevania show. I feel like I might have said that last week. I've been starting up Venture Brothers again. It's very funny, and I got Spider-Man. So, been playing the new Spider-Man video game, Spider-Man 2 for PS5. I'm liking it so far. I am very mixed on some of the gameplay combat things, I think. I kind of mentioned some of it to you, but there's some more that I've kind of gone in, I've thought about. I don't know how much I want to get into if we end up reviewing it. I think one of the things is like it has a parry system now that I'm just like, why is this here? It feels very unnecessary to me and kind of just adding an unnecessary, not necessarily difficulty, but just another thing to like remember to do. There's also like, at least at the point I'm at, there's not that much stealth in this game, which kind of stinks because I really liked the stealth parts of the other games. I feel like I've run into maybe one so far. So I don't know if that'll change as we go, but that's kind of disappointing. Other than that, though, it's quite good so far.
Yeah, no, I have that. I got it too. I played the first couple hours of it. The opening is just incredible.
It's so good.
Insomniac set piece action. Like I didn't think anybody was going to be able to do it better than Naughty Dog, but I think they're at the level where they're doing it better than Naughty Dog. Yeah. Again, I haven't played. I mean, of course, in the original Spider-Man PS4 game, you had the scene with like the Fisk Towers and the crane
Yeah.
and all that. That was just incredible to play through.
It was
And
very fun, yeah.
which was in like the demo of it. In Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I haven't played for a long time, there's the part with one of the bridges.
Yes,
that I just remember
that's right.
being great.
Well, and the intro to that one has the chase with the rhino,
yeah,
which is
that's
quite
right.
good.
And then here in the new one, won't say anything about it, just to let people play it and experience it. But I'm like, wow.
Very good.
And just like you could not do this on a PlayStation 4 either, with some of the things that happen and like characters literally like going halfway across New York in like 2 seconds.
I won't say anything other than like a single word, but I can't remember if you would have gotten to this point yet. Have you gotten to the boat part?
I don't think so.
That's you're probably coming up to another very good set piece.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So I was like, this is pretty awesome. Pretty amazing. The wing suit thing is great.
That's so fun. I love the wingsuit.
Yeah. It's like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why Just Cause 3 made it hard to go back and play Just Cause 2. The wingsuits are great. And like just as fun as web swinging.
All of the new traversal stuff, I think that's the place I don't really have any critiques yet. Everything they've added is very fun.
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. I think Emily and I watched like another half episode of The Killing Vote, but it was just a really busy week for me, so I didn't see that. I'm trying to think. I finished the David Beckham documentary. I don't remember if I talked about that last week, but then I started the Limitless documentary with with Chris Hemsworth on Disney Plus, and I've watched about an episode and a half. It's pretty interesting so far, and just learning about how the body works and trying to go against aging. Pretty entertaining. So yeah, I would check it out if that sounds interesting to you. Otherwise, I think that is it for me, Holman.
Sweet. In that case, next week we're going to be doing Five Nights at Freddy's. So very exciting for that. Five Nights at Freddy's alongside, of course, Loki episode 4 and Gen V episode 7. So penultimate episode of that. Very exciting. If you want to leave us a request, you can do so by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes or email us at tompodcast@gmail.com or donate to our Patreon. And I believe that's it.
All right, sweet. We'll talk to you next week. In the meantime, adios, pantalones.
Love you.